Now, okay. Hi, it's Robert Dunlop here. I'm the co-founder of wellnessheroes.com, and we're launching Wellness Heroes TV here at the Total Health Show in Toronto, and we have the honor and privilege to speak with Jeffrey Smith. Now, he's written a fabulous book he's going to tell us about. This is something I've studied a little bit about as a licensed professional engineer in Ontario. I know a bit about this, but this is the man. And our audience is your average person who wants to know about truth in wellness. So, Jeffrey, you've recently written a book. Can you tell us about the book? And secondly, what motivated you to write that book?
Well, actually, Seeds of Deception wasn't so recent, but it's still actually selling all over the world and being translated in different languages. When I saw how much corruption there was behind the approvals of genetically modified foods in the United States and Canada, and I saw, for example, in Canada, how Health Canada workers who testified before the Senate that they were being offered a bribe by Monsanto to approve their genetically modified bovine growth hormone, the documents were stolen from a locked file cabinet. They were actually, one, Shiv Chopra was actually sent away for a week without pay because he testified before the Senate.
Wow.
In the United States,
how did Shiv fit into that equation? Why, can you just expand on that for our listeners who might not know Shiv?
Okay, Shiv was, he worked at Health Canada, and he realized that they were going to approve bovine growth.
Good morning, everyone. On the south stage.
Excuse me, everyone. We're at a trade show here, so
we're not picking it up.
It's going to be some interruptions.
Okay, Shiv Chopra was aware that Health Canada was about to approve genetically engineered bovine growth hormone without any studies, without any review of studies, just because it happened to be approved in the US. So he raised a fist, raised trouble, and turns out they allowed him and a team to review the approval of bovine growth hormone as had been done in the US, and they found it completely a ridiculous review, where they basically took at face value the assumptions and statements by industry, ignored serious health hazards, and basically put at risk the entire population of the country and the animals. So fortunately, because of his work and others, the bovine growth hormone has been banned in Canada as well as most other parts of the world, but not in the US.
So, thanks everybody.
No, not quite.
Let me know when you're ready.
All right. So, all right, go ahead.
Hold on a second. Do I have my? Yeah. Okay. I think I
Test the
have.
mic, please.
Testing.
Testing, testing,
2 inches. Try again.
testing, testing.
One more.
Want that
more
up?
mic check,
You want that
please.
off? I can help you out. I'll hold this.
Thanks. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm gonna open on the book. So just start talking, and I will zoom down. Okay. Okay, I'm rolling.
Okay, we're here with Wellness Heroes TV, wellnessheroes.tv, and we're launching our channel here to your average person that wants to know about truth and wellness. Can you zoom in on that too? Basically, we have the honor here of being able to interview Jeffrey Smith, and we're talking about his latest book here. Well, sorry, this is not your latest, but this is your latest. I'm getting educated in this area. Genetic roulette, the documented health risks of genetically engineered foods. Sterility, infant mortality, tongue twisters here this morning, allergies, organ defects, childhood diseases, speech impediments perhaps. Basically, I'd like you to talk about this book, and then I'd like you to contrast it with the people that say, you know, GMO is good because it allows our growing population of so many billions to get more food per square inch, and therefore it feeds more people, and it's more, let's say, sustainable for... Can we talk and compare and contrast this book and your ideas with that other school of thought?
Sure.
Thanks for taking the time, Jeffrey. Sorry, it's all yours.
Rodents that were fed genetically modified soy had changes in their testicles, uterus, ovaries, and the DNA of their embryo offspring. They had infant mortality as much as 5 times higher. The infants were often smaller and were often sterile. By the 3rd generation of hamsters fed GM soy, most lost the ability to have babies, and some had hair growing in their mouths. Rats fed genetically modified tomatoes had stomach lesions. Rats fed genetically modified potatoes had potentially precancerous cell growth, smaller brains, livers, and testicles, partial atrophy of the liver, and a damaged immune system.
So the message is to your average consumer, this stuff messes you up.
The average consumer would say, what? That's in my food? And you see, the biotech industry, when they discover that someone has found these adverse findings, they sometimes arrange for that person to be fired from their jobs, or silenced with threats of a lawsuit, or denied funding for further research, or they threaten to sue them because they're using the seeds without patent permission. So we have a situation where the industry research is basically tobacco science. It's rigged to avoid finding problems. The regulators are largely staffed by the people from the companies, or have links to the companies with the products that they're trying to regulate. Those independent scientists that discover problems are jumped upon and attacked. But we've compiled all the different dangers into the book, and it provides irrefutable, overwhelming evidence that GMOs are unsafe. Now, the biotech industry claims it's necessary to feed the world, but the experts disagree. In fact, the most comprehensive...
When you say the experts, you're talking about the health experts?
I'm talking about the experts at feeding the world.
Experts at feed... So can you cite a few examples?
All right. The Union of Concerned Scientists did a comprehensive study showing that GMOs actually do not increase yield, they reduce yield on average. But the most comprehensive study of agriculture and feeding the world was done by was sponsored by more than 60 countries and done by more than 400 scientists, called the ISTAT report, and they said the current generation of GMOs have nothing to offer to feed the hungry world or eradicate poverty. So it's basically public relations.
Now, there's a movie that I really enjoyed called Michael Clayton by George Clooney.
Right.
Now, you wrote your first book in 2003, and the book was called?
Seeds of Deception.
And do you think there's any parallels to your first book and that movie?
Oh yeah, the book shows that industry insiders knew one thing and the public was told something else. And that was happening not only in the corporations, but even in the government. You know, documents made public from a lawsuit in 1999 showed that the scientists at the FDA were concerned about GMOs and actually...
Again.
Okay, we're rolling.
Okay, so Jeffrey, you wrote your best-selling book in the world in 2003 on the GMO, and what was it called again for our audience?
Seeds of Deception.
Right. Now that book is in how many countries?
It's in about 15 countries in about 10 or 11 languages.
Fantastic. So basically, the question is, there is a movie that I believe Tony Gilroy, worked on, with George Clooney starred in, called Michael Clayton. And it came out a few years ago. I loved the movie. How would you compare your work to, in the book of Seeds of Deception, to the actual movie Michael Clayton?
Well, Seeds of Deception is all about deception at the corporate level, at the government level, at the media level. How whenever there's truth that shows problems with GMOs, it's covered up. Even at the FDA, where 44,000 secret internal memos were made public in 1999, it showed that the overwhelming consensus among the scientists at the FDA was that GMOs were unsafe and could lead to allergies, toxins, new diseases, and nutritional problems. But the person in charge of policy was former Monsanto attorney, later Monsanto's vice president, completely ignored and denied the existence of those warnings, lied about them, and said, we know of no information that's showing that GMOs are different, and put it on the market. We also know that the research that was done to support the claims of safety was entirely rigged, and we have caught them red-handed. And we show, in fact, that there was a deadly epidemic in the 1980s, which was linked to a genetically modified food supplement, that Congress withheld that information, the FDA withheld that information from Congress when they reported on the epidemic soon after it happened.
So our slogan on wellnessheroes.tv is truth in wellness. How true, can you comment on that as it pertains to that story?
Sorry to interrupt.
Already asked it? Okay, so cut that. So how should we wrap up this piece, Vic?
I don't know, maybe you can...
How would you like to
thank
wrap
very
this
much.
piece up?
Oh, you know, one question might be... do
You want to lead into your latest book? Wrap it up with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to wrap this. And when was that book written?
This was 2007.
This is your latest?
You could say.
Okay.
So go ahead.
So, Jeffrey, this Genetic Roulette, that is an amazing title. It looks like almost an encyclopedia. Why did you actually write this book?
Well, I was traveling around the world, at that point 25 countries, giving seeds of deception to world leaders. And I realized they don't have time to read these stories of scientists that were fired, of corrupted politicians and corrupted media. So I realized they don't have any time for that, so I have to give them something they can read quickly. But I also have to convince the scientists with the evidence that GMOs are unsafe. So I created an idea to do a 2-page spread, and one side is for the attention deficit politician, because it's a summary, and one side is for their staff and the scientists. So every page is a 2-page spread for the quick scan and the deep read.
So it's almost in a way like GMO for dummies, in terms of the format that it's very lame. The average layperson can pick it up and quickly gather information in this condensed format. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, and that's why it's become popular and used all over the world as kind of the source book for the argument that GMOs are not safe. And the biotech industry has never been able to counter this evidence. They try with unscientific assumptions, but essentially it stands as a document that shows clearly that they're lying about the safety of GMOs, that GMOs are unsafe. They're linked to thousands of sick, sterile, and dead livestock, thousands of toxic and allergic reactions in humans, damage to virtually every organ and every system studied, and they should be removed from our food supply.
That's powerful information. Jeffrey Smith, thank you so much for this time. We're going to be back with our next clip on what would you do if you're president or prime minister on the GMO topic.
Great.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Wellness Heroes TV, out. Tell me when you're ready, Vic. Okay, we're back with wellnessheroes.tv, Truth in Wellness. Now, we said we were going to grant Jeffrey Smith the authority of being president and prime minister at the same time in Canada and the US, and he's the head of the UN, if there is such a thing. He's now the king of the UN. So with those three things, and we're anointing him right now, Jeffrey, you are thus anointed by wellnessheroes.tv and our followers, and we would like to hear what you would do to do the world well, and when it comes to GMO, so we can have healthier food to our people in this planet.
Well, I would first eliminate all genetically modified organisms from growing outdoors. I'd put them back in the laboratory under very secure conditions. I would ban the current crops that are genetically modified because I believe there's overwhelming evidence that they're unsafe. I would then also undeploy the apparatus of the US and Canadian governments, which are now being used to try and push GMOs into other countries around the world. Like the WikiLeaks that are coming out right now shows that the US is using countries and contacts in Romania, in Italy, in Spain, in France, in the Vatican to try and push the pro-GMO agenda. I would like to see that reversed so that they actually expose the situation. I would force companies like Monsanto to make public all of their research data and grant kind of amnesty to everyone who works in the corporation to provide information about the truth, and so they won't be sued by Monsanto for going against their non-disclosure.
A quick question. We commented on a previous clip about the Michael Clayton movie starring George Clooney.
Right.
Now, there are some parallels to that in Monsanto. Now, it amazes me that that this can go on so blatant and be brought to light through a movie like Michael Clayton. And how do we get the average person to buy into this? How do we get the message and compete with all these massive, big media companies that we're fighting against?
Well, I think wherever we tell the truth about GMOs and describe the corruption at the corporate level and at the government level, people get it, and they want to avoid eating GMOs. And so we explain to people about the health dangers. We explain to people how to avoid GMOs. We have a non-GMO shopping guide at non-GMOshoppingguide.com. And we tell people that just a small percentage of consumers avoiding brands that use GM ingredients could create a tipping point of consumer rejection. And so we don't need most of Americans and Canadians to avoid GMOs, just a small percentage. And that'll kick it out of the food supply in North America, as has already been done for the same reason in Europe.
And we talk at Wellness Heroes about the voting dollars and the power of the voting dollars that we have as Canadians and Americans and around the world. And you're saying that's already happening in Europe. So to accelerate that, let's let our listeners know all your websites, if you can let them know now.
Well, if you go to responsibletechnology.org, then you can sign up to be part of the Non-GMO Tipping Point Network and get together with others on a local or national basis to help with the outreach. You can sign up for a free electronic newsletter. You can even sign up to become trained on how to speak on GMOs, which we do online and in person.
Fantastic.
So that's responsibletechnology.org. There's also free online videos and audios and plenty of articles. Then non-GMOshoppingguide.com helps people choose healthier non-GMO products. It lists thousands of products. And then at seedsofdeception.com, we have books and DVDs and CDs offered for sale.
Fantastic. All right. So any final thoughts on what you would do as the king of the UN and with all the power in the world to fight GMO? I think you've laid it out well. Anything final message to your average person that might not understand this? What's your message to them?
Well, there's two things. First of all, with all of that power, I would try to expose the truth associated with GMOs and require money to be used to do basic safety research on what's already been deployed by the biotech industry, etc. I'd also change the current curriculum in the schools which have been skewed and biased by the biotech industry, which promotes their lies about the myths that GMOs were based upon. And in terms of basic message to the public, I would say that this is an urgent situation. The genes already released into the environment can cross-pollinate. They'll outlast the effects of global warming and nuclear waste. So it's urgent. The biotech industry plans to replace all seeds. That's their agenda, to replace nature. So we have to protect ourselves, the environment, and all future generations. And we can do so by creating a tipping point, just helping protect ourselves and the ones that we love.
Is the USA the only government in the world that's issued patents on seeds?
Oh no. Patents on seeds go all over because the corporations have developed that kind of protocols through the WTO and other places. So patenting is now commonplace.
Did it start in the USA?
I'm not sure where, well, the patenting of life did in a Supreme Court decision that was okay to patent a bacterium. But that really opened the floodgates to patenting life, and now thousands of genes inside our own bodies are already patented.
Final comment. So if you were a farmer trying to fight this, and I've heard that the wind can blow these Monsanto seeds into your farm, and all of a sudden you're expected to pay a royalty on your crop and also buy the magic fertilizer that will match your crop. What's your message to the farmers? What the heck? I heard of a farmer trying to fight this, various farmers fighting this. What's your message to them, and what's a good website for them to go do?
Well, a lot of farmers have been getting information skewed by the biotech industry, which tends to own the major channels of information that go to farmers. The seed dealers, the agricultural chemical dealers, the land-grant universities in the United States, the agricultural extension agents, the farm journals and the radios. But there's a lot of information now about holistic, appropriate methods that actually yield more, have higher income for farmers, and better sustainability in the long run. And so I would say find the experts in that sustainable type of agriculture and who are doing fundamentally better things and making higher income. And rather than trying to navigate among the lies that are being perpetuated by the biotech industry, and also by some of the farm organizations that they largely support, because the farm organizations that they support are not allowed to tell the truth about GMOs.
So in the future, I'm going to ask for your help from yourself and from some others to set up a website. I don't know what's up there to help the farmers get more aligned on this. And would you be interested in giving us some tips on what that should look like?
Well, there are websites out there. There's a Farmer to Farmer campaign. There's GE Free, Cal GE Free from California, dedicated to rice farmers. There's different groups out there. I don't have one that comes to mind, but there's a number of things. There's agricultural information, there's economic information, and there's health information. Farmers know a lot. They're all economists. They need to know every aspect about why non-GMO is a better, healthier choice.
Excellent. So it would be, as a social media student and enthusiast, I mean, it would be great to aggregate that information with one well-known domain, and we'll talk about that amongst our team, and hopefully you have some good comments for us on your opinions, because you are, it appears, the leading authority on GMO in terms of publications in the world. Would that be correct, Jeffrey?
Well, I talk about it a lot.
Well, yeah. So, and this, we'll cut it off here. Thanks so much for listening to wellnessheroes.tv with Jeffrey Smith. Truth and wellness is what we're about, and really, I think that's what Jeffrey stands for. Would that be safe to say?
Well, it's exposing it so other people can gain the wellness by not hurting themselves to the current GMOs, yes.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Jeffrey.
Thank you.
Thanks. We have time for a
Tell me a little bit about MIPSO and then
Yeah.
ask him a question.
Ready?
Okay. Yes, we will.
Okay, it's Robert Dunlop here. I'm the founder of MIPSO, which is Mental Health Peer Support Organization. Currently, we're working out of St. Joe's Health Center in Toronto, and we're looking to expand in other locations in Toronto. That's our website, mipso.org. And that's our slogan. Basically, people around the world helping each other get stronger through education and peer support. And I'm here with Jeffrey Smith today, famous author of numerous books on the GMO hot topic. Jeffrey, what would be your message to the mental health community as it pertains to GMO?
I would say it's important to eliminate genetically modified foods from your diet, but also to try and focus on unprocessed foods in their natural state. There was a high school, a continuation high school in Appleton, Wisconsin, where they switched overnight from feeding the normal junk food school meals to the kids to healthy, freshly prepared foods. And the behavior of the kids changed dramatically. The amount of meds taken by the kids reduced dramatically.
And these are pharmaceutical meds.
Pharmaceutical meds. And it turns out that the school was described as out of control and chaotic before the change and smooth and coherent after the change. And they did studies actually in the classroom where they took mice and fed them junk food or healthy food, and within a couple of days the junk food eating mice freaked out, became cannibals, killed and ate another one. It was pretty much of a gory mess. And
Wow.
and it took them several weeks to get back to healthy behavior when they switched to healthy diet. Now, when I looked at the Appleton, Wisconsin school changes, it turns out they had removed, quite accidentally, almost all sources of genetically modified foods when they switched to healthy, fresh prepared food. And so we don't know how much the GMO component is involved, but we do have some very slight indications from animal feeding studies that the behavior of certain rodents was more agitated and hyperactive when eating the GMOs compared to the non-GM. It's preliminary, it's not reliable, but it should be followed up. But I would say people don't need to wait for that follow-up because there's so many other health dangers associated with genetically modified foods. It would be safer for anyone to reduce that in their diet and ideally avoid it completely.
Well, that's amazing. We're just so grateful that you can reach out to a community with some suggestions. And what websites can people go to learn more about Jeffrey Smith and your work?
Well, at responsibletechnology.org, you can learn more about the dangers. There's a documentary online called Hidden Dangers in Kids' Meals, which has an excerpt about the Appleton, Wisconsin school. And then if you want to avoid GMOs, at non-GMOshoppingguide.com, we have thousands of products that are non-GMO that you can identify and then purchase in your local supermarket.
Fantastic. And as far as mental health peer support organization, it's free to join. If you have any friends or loved ones, come on down and join, and just go to mipso.org. And we're honored to have this time with Jeffrey today at the Total Health Show here in Toronto, kicking off our first interview for MIPSO. Thank you very much, Jeffrey.
Thank you. All right.
Thanks a lot.
Diet improves dramatically because a lot of foods in nature have toxins in them, and when you can boil them, you actually make them less toxic. although I'm a tremendous fan of eating, wonderful food, obviously all our food was organic, obviously all our food was not genetically modified, and that, is a no-brainer. I'm not sure that we have to go to the extreme of eating absolutely nothing but raw food. It's a great teacher for me is evolution. And so often we don't realize how much we are a product of our evolutionary biology. I mean, in essence, we are hunter-gatherers. And men hunt more and women gather more. And men actually have a different biology to women as a consequence.
They get sometimes more than we do in terms of their connection with nature. There was a person that watched a bear scratch white willow bark off of a tree, later killed the bear, and found that he had folded up the white willow bark and put it in his mouth where he was having a toothache. White willow bark is the source of aspirin. Somehow animals pick up the resonance or intelligence, which is interesting why with GMOs so many farmers tell us when given a choice, animals avoid eating GMOs. Cows, pigs, squirrels, geese, elk, deer, raccoons, mice, rats, and buffalo. So it's our job to get humans up to the level of animals. But you see, it's not all humans that may be dislocated and disassociated with that intuition, which is lively in the animals. If we look at the indigenous knowledge out there, we find evidence of wisdom that could not be obtained through trial and error. It was obtained through knowledge, through intuition, through knowingness. And when I work around the world to stop GMOs, from time to time I meet members of indigenous cultures, like the Hawaiians who describe taro as their older brother, or the Plains Indians in Great Lakes that describe white rice, or wild rice, as sacred, or in Mexico it's corn. And they describe how they are desperate to protect their cousins and relatives and brothers from genetic engineering, because it is destroying the soul of their relation. We can take a great lesson